Our first speaker is Sergio Marchese from OneSpin Solutions, who's the technical marketing manager there. Sergio has 19 years of experience in hardware design, constrained random simulation, forward verification, and design for test. He has built and managed state-of-the-art teams, successfully achieving formal sign-off on complex designs. Before taking the role of technical marketing manager at OneSpin, he served at Huawei, leading formal verification for ARM CPU and consumer SoCs. So, Sergio.
Who is familiar with RISC-V? Good. So I think it's a very hot topic, and I'm going to talk about RISC-V and specifically a functional verification approach to RISC-V cores using SVA, a set of SVA SystemVerilog assertions that can be proven to be complete and free from gaps. So if we look at OneSpin, one slide on OneSpin. OneSpin focuses IC integrity, and what we mean in this context by IC integrity is really based on three pillars. Functional correctness, which has been a lot of the focus, at least in these last talks, making sure that your hardware does what it is supposed to do. Safety, we have talked a lot about this as well, meeting the requirements, for example, of ISO 262 and other safety standards, making sure your hardware do the right things, not in normal operation, but for example, in the presence of faults. And trust and security, where you are really looking at if the hardware can do things that is not supposed to do. And really, this is a different kind of beast, again, that requires additional effort, additional solutions. And in terms of applicability of IC integrity, is applicable across many different projects. And in this case, we're going to talk about RISC-V. So I'm going to just have one slide on RISC-V, then talk about verification challenges and the OneSpin integrity verification solution, and a case study on a rocket core. So RISC-V was developed is an open RISC instruction set architecture developed in California. It's supported by the RISC-V Foundation. We are a member. There are loads of members. It's a flexible and extensible instruction set architecture. You can add a custom instruction. There's let's say a framework to do that. There is already significant software support, tool chain, and of course it's free, and also you don't have to pay royalties if you use it in your products. So one of the challenges with the RISC-V is, I say one of the big challenges, of course, the ecosystem, but quality is another big challenge, because how do you match the quality, for example, of established architecture? If you take an established architecture, probably they have verification environments that have been built over the course of decades. Of course, they have all the latest thing, emulation, FPGA farms, formal, constrained random, lots of directed tests, even coming from legacy test suite from a long time. So obviously, how can a new core match this level of quality or even exceed it? That's definitely a big challenge. And formal verification can have a big role in this, I think. So first of all, we know that verifying cores is very complex. If you have ever worked in process of verification, you know that you often talk about sometimes decades of person years of effort to build tests, instruction stream generators, formal emulation, directed test, run weeks and weeks and weeks of simulation. It's a huge amount of effort. And really the complication comes from, a lot of complication comes because you want to meet performance, power, and area targets. And, this brings, pipeline, microarchitecture, branch prediction, prefetch, out-of-order execution, and you name it. So formal verification, we know that is very good at finding deep corner case bugs, but it also has the ability, and this is really the focus of this talk, to prove absence of bugs, which other techniques cannot do, like simulation or emulation. But it has its challenges, complexity issues, and methodology issues. You know, how do you get to unbounded proof? How do you write good quality reusable assertion? So OneSpin recently announced a RISC-V integrity verification solution. And as part of the solution, there is a RISC-V verification app. So the RISC-V integrity solution, the key component, is a formalization of the instruction set architecture in SystemVerilog assertions. These assertions are decoupled from the microarchitectural details. So you can apply this to multiple implementation of RISC-V cores. You can achieve unbounded proofs with, you know, some user design decisions, you know, input, which is some information, some microarchitectural details. You can verify the entire core. And another very interesting aspect of this, which I'll talk more, is about not only ensuring that the hardware, for example, implements all the instruction correctly, but also detect if there is any additional functionality, for example, some hidden function. So the technology, another piece of technology that is crucial in this solution is gap-free verification, what we call. And this is really ensures that the set of assertions describing the ISA, capturing the RISC-V ISA, is free from gaps. So in a sense, you can see this as when you do this process, you apply this verification app, you can see as doing equivalency checking between the operational, the SystemVerilog assertions, which are written in a special style, which we call operational SVA, and the actual core implementation. So, for example, again, if there is anything here, like you would, you know, if you do equivalency checking between two design, if there is some hidden functionality in one that is not in the other, it will come up. I don't know if you're familiar with equivalency checking or with even sequential equivalency checking app from Formal Tools. So this is a similar thing, but you compare effectively, ultimately, it's equivalent to comparing the implementation with the executable, let's say, RISC-V ISA specification. So the case study, our customer Adaptive applied this to the Rocket core, is an open source core, which has been taped out multiple times, 64-bit, 5-stage pipeline. It's a single issue in order pipeline, but it also has out-of-order completion of certain instructions, branch prediction, instruction replay, so it has quite some complication. Just to clarify the scope of the project, the focus was on the core pipeline CSRs, covering the integer, compressed, and atomic instruction, multiplication and division unit as well, but only control logic. We did not, the app does not, they did not verify the actual result of the multiplication and division. They verify that the right operands come in, the result is written in the right register, everything, but the actual result was not verified. Exception handling is covered, interrupt events, and also special instruction. The FPU was not included. Have you ever heard about the Rocket core? No? It's an open source core that is quite, let's say, it has a lot of interest in the US right now, from a lot of organizations, including military application. So, so what did we find in the rocket core, or what Adaptive is a US defense contractor? There were a bunch of bugs found. For example, a bug on the divide instruction that because it was completing out of order in some corner cases, some other results would take over the div results, and the div results was lost. This was a pretty crazy corner case, but nevertheless, it was fixed by the designers. By the way, this project is on GitHub, so you can also find all these issues on GitHub. Okay, it's an open source core. We also found some issues with replaying of illegal opcodes. So an opcode that is illegal, it still went to the accessing the memory. And then if it was a cache miss, it would again replay, whereas it really should have been upfront, say it's illegal, you know, throw the exception and that's it. Don't need to do all this stuff. Another very interesting thing that was found by these guys was that there was a undocumented instruction, seize instruction, non-statement instruction. They had put it there, the designers, I'm not sure why, to be honest. There must be a reason, of course. But when they did the fix for the div, so they had not found it before because it was not there. But then on the re-verification of the design after the div fix, there was some unverified functionality that the one spin up was popping up. And then it turned out that it was a new instruction, not started, undocumented. So this was particularly interesting for to these guys, maybe even more than the bug, because they were particularly worried about this kind of issues where you can have undocumented hidden things in the hardware. So if we look at some runtime and other results, we have 10 minutes per property with helper assertions, or 5 hours without helper assertion, you know, unbounded proofs, and an overall runtime of a couple of hours, and very limited effort to set up. So maybe this is the silver bullet for the RISC-V course. So it is possible to achieve exhaustive unbounded proof for RISC-V cores. With this solution, you know, you can in a sense leapfrog established architectures. You can match or even exceed the quality of established architecture, which rely maybe, you know, all sorts of tests, including legacy tests from 10 years back. And this is the RISC-V verification app from OneSpin. It's part of this overall verification, integrity verification solution. We know that integrity, I'll talk about functional correctness, safety, trust, and security. For example, here we didn't touch safety aspects. And of course applies to third-party IP cores or open source cores if you want to ensure that the RISC-V core you source from a third party, you know, it's really does what it says on the tin and nothing else. This could be very interesting. For example, if you do not, I don't want to say you don't trust your suppliers, but you want to have a quick, affordable way to have an independent cross-check, so to speak. And of course, it's also very useful, for example, if you take an open source core or even an in-house core, and on the next project revision, you add extension, for example, custom instruction, you can extend this app to also cover custom extensions. If you want to know more, you can go to the OneSpin site, including the blog. We have a paper on this experience from this defense contractor in the US that was presented at Gomatech. And if you're interested about hardware Trojans, malicious logic potentially inserted into hardware, I'm giving another talk in the afternoon in the security track that focus on that. So I hope I see you all there. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Sergio. Yeah, so there might be a deja vu moment this afternoon if you see it is really Sergio speaking again at 3:30. You haven't slipped into an alternative world. Do we have a question for Sergio before lunch? We've got people who have asked questions before. So as soon as you've given two, Paddy, I'll go to Gareth because he's only given one question. So sorry, Paddy, you've been trumped.
Sorry, I possibly missed this on the way through. How big was the assertion list? How many properties did you need to completely cover this?
So the way you count properties can be, I can tell you a number, 100. It doesn't tell you a lot because, for example, you can have basically at the let's say specification level is one assertion per property. Then you have, for example, assertion for exceptions, and you also have some additional assertion to cover, for example, illegal opcodes and things like that. But you can pack some assertions into one if that gives optimized runtime. For example, if you have add, sub, a bunch of classes of instruction, you just change the results that is stored. You would pack this into one assertion with, so yeah. Well, otherwise, you should think, the number of instructions you plus a few more.
We've got time to.
I just thought that for the earlier talk that some of those code going to be quite complex. It's going to have some of those things that Form isn't very good at. Is it the case that your tool is going to give you a complete set of assertions, but if you run it on the RISC-V, most RISC-Vs, it's going to have a lot of cases of bounded proof because multiplies in there or something like that.
Well, for example, things like multipliers, you can cut. So, for example, in this project, multipliers were not verified. The divide result wasn't verified. So, of course, you can introduce some tricks, which are not really complicated. In this case, it's not complicated. It's fairly clear to exclude the multiplier. Say, okay, you take the hit. I'm not verifying this, but you are able to achieve unbounded proof. Of course, I don't want to claim take an out-of-order 50-stage pipeline with the superstar architecture. Of course, that's probably the least, but still the formalization of the RISC-V ISA into the SystemVerilog assertions in a way that is independent from the microarchitecture and in the way that is proof that is a complete specification of the RISC-V ISA, that already is a lot of value on its own.
Okay. Well, we've just run out. So, Sammy, 3 hands ago, it's just 12:30. So, I suggest we just say thank you to Sergio.
Do you have more questions? Julian is there. Ask him.
Yeah. So we say thank you to Sergio. We'll let people go to lunch. If you want to ask a question, then stay, and I'm sure Sergio will skip his starter to answer your question. One thing I'm minded of, which might be a good conversation of the lunch, Fred looked at a paper in 1986. So I'm reminded that there is no silver bullet. And there was a very famous paper back in 1986 on software engineering. So we talk to silver bullets. Maybe it's a good conversation for lunch. But for those who want to stay, I'll hand the mic around now and we can ask some questions. And yeah,
I was just wondering, because one of the things with RISC project actually comes from an ISA test suite for free. You can download off the web. So what does this give you above that? And are you feeding back into that?
Okay, good question. So that's kind of a compliance strict. So it doesn't look for corner case. It doesn't look for additional functionality. If you are familiar, for example, with ARM, you buy an architectural license for ARM and you develop your own processor. You can license a test suite for ARM, but that's like a compliance test suite. Then you gotta do your verification anyway. That is like checking you are implementing the CSRs. That pretty much what you're implementing is compliant with the architecture, but then all your corner case bugs, hidden functionalities, whatnot, that's your business. And that would be very good if they provide you with the full compliance verification test with the, I mean, the huge amount of work.
Yes, I was just asking because most of the bugs tend to be in pipelining and the things ISAs rarely bring up complicated bugs in processes.
Sure, but here you find the bugs in the pipeline. So that's the whole point. So we were not looking for the ISA, but yeah, that's you verify the ISA against the microarchitecture, so you can find bugs for welding parts. You can find the bugs like the div and out of order result that comes to write in the register file precisely when some other action was coming in, and that was a very corner case bug. I mean, this was taped out multiple times. And still, these guys found quite the interesting bugs, plus the hidden instruction and even a hidden CSR. So,
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay.